So welcome back, everybody. Of course, my name is Dr. Keith McNally, and I'm the Question Guy, and this is the Question Guy podcast. And I'm here with John, but John actually does have a last name. His name is John Stevens, and John Stevens lives not in the United States. He is originally from the United States, and I think you lived northern part of the East Coast,
Yes, northern New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, and you are now living in Argentina.
That's right.
So that's a long distance away. That's far. That's even far away from where I'm at, and I'm in Virginia. And so today we're going to talk about lifestyle from somebody who's living the dream basically because he's kind of taken ownership of his what he wants to do now in life. And let's go ahead and get started. So I got to ask, what prompted you to leave the States?
Well, I hadn't really thought up until the time I retired from regular employment in 2010. I hadn't really thought a lot about living in another country. I did live in Indonesia for a few years back in the early 90s because of my work.
Okay.
But that was my only, other than occasional travel, that was my only real international experience. But in the early 90s, I met Doug Casey, who is one of the founders of this development where I now live. Mm-hmm. And I got to know him and he was writing a newsletter and traveling all over the world and writing about his experiences. And he's visited nearly every country in the world, I think. And so in about 2005, he decided that Argentina is the best place in the world to live after all his travels.
And did he write about that, or how did he? Yeah.
Yes, he absolutely did. He was writing a newsletter on not on a totally regular basis. It was kind of a sporadic thing when he had time, but he was doing it pretty regularly. Okay. And so I started reading, actually in 2007, he got a group of investors together and started this development in Northwest Argentina. And I began to read about that and I got kind of intrigued and I thought I'd like to go take a look at it. And then I went to a financial conference in I think May of 2010, and met some people who invited me to join that, to visit them in Panama. Mm-hmm. So I agreed to do that, and then I thought, well, while I'm making my first trip south of the U.S. border, I ought to check out what Casey's up to in Argentina. So I did, and then I liked it, bought a lot, and over the next few years, I visited several times a year. The community here had various events for expat owners and so on. And then in 2016, after I'd visited, probably 8 or 10 times, I made up my mind that I began to think about living here. And so I made a spreadsheet that compared New Hampshire life with Cafajate life. Cafajate is the
I don't know if there's a comparison there at all, but
there is.
I'm sure there is.
Basically, what I did was to list all of down the left side of the spreadsheet, I listed all the factors that are important to me in life, okay, that I could think of. Okay. And then I rated each area on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of those factors.
Well, can we talk about those factors? Can we talk about that list? Yeah, because that's going to give people who's listening a real appreciation for how they should go about making a decision on where to live. And I know in your article, and you shared your article with me earlier, some of the things that may be on that list, like making friends and cost of living.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just pulled up the spreadsheet on my computer.
Okay.
And so
it's on the top of that list.
The first thing the top of the list was personal liberty.
Ooh, well, can you explain that?
Second on the list was Yeah, yeah.
What is personal liberty?
It's the freedom to move around and do as you please, as long as you don't harm others, of course,
Hmm.
um, and not be restricted by various policies and so on, as to what you have to do and what you can't do, and I like the feeling of being able to move around without the feeling that somebody's looking over my shoulder. And I
Okay.
have that here, and I didn't have that in the United States.
Okay.
So,
Well, you mean you
so
had it,
that,
you felt that way in the States, but you don't have it where you
well,
are now.
I felt that I wanted it. I felt that I wanted it, but I didn't
Okay.
feel that I had it.
Right. In the States.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was a huge factor in favor of Argentina.
Okay.
And ease of contact with the family, of course, was my family's all in the States, so that was a negative factor.
Okay. Are they all up in New
Although
Hampshire, your family, or are they kind of spread out?
my son and his family are in New Hampshire, and my daughter lives alone in Montana.
Okay. So she's
And
somewhere else.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm,
And I have a brother who lives in Pennsylvania. That's where I actually grew up, but I'd lived in New Hampshire for the last 10 years.
mhm.
And a cousin also in Pennsylvania
Well, I grew up in
that I'm
Pennsylvania
very
too.
close to. Mhm.
I grew up in Philly.
So, well, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about that. Yeah. So, ease of contact with important friends was the next on the list.
Friends. Okay.
And that was a big factor here. And actually, grouped with that, I also mentioned the percentage of people that I associate with on a regular basis that I really enjoy.
Okay.
And
So,
although I have lots of good friends in the States, the percentage of people that I enjoy here is hugely greater.
so,
So,
so what's the community like down there? Like, who's in this development? What type of people? Older people,
uh,
younger people, native to
it
Argentina?
There are a few native to Argentina. Well, actually, it's becoming more common for Argentines to to live here or to vacation here.
Okay.
Quite a few of them have built houses here. It's not something that the middle class in Argentina can typically afford. It's only
Okay.
the wealthier Argentines who come here, and it's not cheap for expats either. It's uh, the lots, the properties in the community vary from probably $50,000 to a large lot might be as much as 200,000.
And that's
And
with or without a house? That's just a
that's
lot.
without a house. That's
Okay.
that's without a house. And then a house, you can probably build the housing building prices are cheap. Around $100 a square foot, which is much less than you'd see in the United States.
Mm.
But most people build big houses, and so to buy a house here that's already built, you're probably going to spend at least $200,000, and maybe as much as, I mean, if it's a big house, it might be $1 million.
Mhm.
Uh, so, but anyway, the people we have a few resident expats. And that's gradually increasing. We have several people who are expecting to move here in the next year or two.
And
I
that's in
think
the
we're
development.
in the development,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and a few people in town too who have. Uh, we're on the edge of a small town of about 15,000 people,
Wow. Okay.
and we're quite separate from it physically, but we all mix a lot with the local residents, and the town's only about half a kilometer from our front gate.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
This is a gated community.
And I think if I remember correctly from the last time we talked, you are up in elevation, right? You're like
Yeah,
up on a mountain
yeah.
plateau. What is
Yeah,
that like?
we're actually in a valley,
Okay.
but it's 5,600 feet above sea level,
Okay.
And
And
so,
that's significant.
and all around us, yeah, and all around us are mountains that scale up to 20 or 25,000 feet. We're in the foothills of the Andes Mountains,
Wow.
which is, of course, the southern extension of the Rockies.
Wow. I like that. So it
So,
must, so part of that lifestyle that you've chosen to become a part of, very, very social, very outdoor, very um, peaceful. I think I read in your article, or I remember your article as being there's not a big concern about crime and violence. It's a good place to be, just in terms
yes,
of personal safety, and that could
right.
be attractive to people in terms of
Oh, of course,
lifestyle.
of
Yeah,
course. And uh, so something you said triggered me for a minute. I will get to it, I'm sure.
that's okay. So what's it like being in a
Uh,
place that you feel safe?
um,
I mean, that's got to be a big relief considering, we both, well, I still live in the States and um you never know. We keep our doors locked. We have home security systems. It's sometimes it feels like I gotta have it just to uh because people might be spying on me. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to become paranoid or anything, but it's become more and more commonplace here in the States, and to be in a place where that's not a thing must be part of that personal liberty, that feeling of wow,
yeah,
this is comfortable.
absolutely, absolutely. Most of us do lock our houses. I don't think it's necessary. Occasionally I go away and leave my front door unlocked with a key in it, and no, nothing ever comes of that. So, uh, but it's but the heavy security, and of course we're in a being in a gated
Gated
community, we
community.
have security here too,
Right, right.
which professional security, which makes a big difference. I don't know that you would leave a house unlocked in town, because even though violent crime is extremely rare, uh, a lot of people seem to think that whatever's lying around belongs to them. So, so it's, I wouldn't leave things. I had something stolen off my bicycle once, and not my bicycle, but just something that was in
Something
the
like
basket on the bicycle, and so it does happen, but it's not. But violent crime is unheard of. I don't know if we've had a murder here in the last 20 years, and I've never seen a fight that
wow.
amounted to anything.
Well, good. That's beautiful. I mean, that's really how any human community should be. I mean,
Yeah,
there is really no sense to it, because you got to live with one another. But I want to get back
right.
to the very picturesque. You live in very much a postcard picturesque place, valley, mountains, there's oceans, the weather's nice, it's beautiful, people are beautiful. I mean, you can't ask for too much more. Go ahead.
It's, I think all of those factors are listed in my spreadsheet, and they were all important considerations, of course, in coming here. Um, the One of the things that you might want to mention on the for your listeners is that they can get a sense of what this place is like by going to a website, and that website is LEC.
Okay.
I put it. It's in that article that you read.
Okay. And I'll
L
take it.
L L
It'll go in
E
the description. Go ahead. LEC.
lec.com
Okay.
dot ar, and it's
Okay.
important to put the AR on,
For
because
Argentina.
if
Okay.
yeah, it otherwise that lec.com takes you somewhere else.
Okay. So I want to go back to something earlier in our conversation because you were reading this, and I even forget his name, his newsletter, and you had something that he wrote and got you initially excited or at least interested in thinking about, this is long before you even moved, but just thinking about the possibility, hey, Argentina sounds nice. Do you remember what
Yeah,
the
but at that time, I was not considering a move. I,
okay, but
it
you
was several
thought something
years.
triggered in your head. Something triggered
Oh,
in your
yes, I
head.
wanted to go see it.
Okay.
And
What was
and I
that?
knew by that time I knew Doug well enough that I was very interested in what he was doing, and I'd made some other friends in his circle. And one of those guys lives here, and he's become my best friend.
Cool.
Uh,
But before I want to get to that too, but talk about what was the initial, interest, what were the things that he said that were interesting enough to think about it?
well, I did like the idea of uh, having of spreading your life out a little bit so that you're not completely um, dependent on one regime, one political system.
Okay.
I could see that the U.S. was going in a direction that I wasn't very thrilled about,
Okay.
and
In terms of government, in terms of
in terms
governance.
of in terms of government, yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
monetary policy, and all those things.
Okay.
So, um, and actually, one of the things that I think scares people about Argentina is that the news they see about Argentina is all about Buenos Aires, and that is every bit like that's very much like the not like the United States, but it has a lot of the trappings of government intervention in people's lives and all that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And here we're 1,000 miles from Buenos Aires, and the federal government has no interest or resources really in paying much attention to us.
Okay.
40% of the people in Argentina live in and around Buenos Aires, and that's where they pay their attention.
Okay. So what are the other points of interest that said, okay, let me think about Argentina? Because I want to get to that your friendships in a little bit.
Okay.
So what
uh, the weather, for one thing,
okay.
the fact that we have that all of the environmental factors really play into. One of the things I'm a big fan of wine, and we're in a wine region,
Okay.
and we have wonderful inexpensive wine here, and probably 10 to 30% of what you'd pay in the United States.
Okay. So
And
cost of living overall is really good there. So regard the comparison.
yeah, even from where I lived in Merle, New Hampshire, where costs were not as high as many places,
Mhm.
I still am paying less than 50% on average for my lifestyle here, and my lifestyle is probably better.
So out of curiosity, what do you do for a living? What do you do to make money? I mean,
I'm a copywriter,
okay.
and so I write for clients who my primary market is business coaches,
Okay.
and I've focused on teamwork throughout a good share of my career, and so I my uh, best client is a business coach who works with companies and organizations to build teamwork.
Okay, cool. Okay. And so money is not an issue for you. You have the resources to do what you need to do.
Yes,
Okay.
and in fact, much different from the way it would be in the United States. I collect Social Security, and my Social Security is adequate to live on.
Okay. Well, that's even good. That's good to know,
So,
especially for our listeners.
so yeah.
Go ahead. So talk about your friendships.
So
So this was a place that you could really make friends rather easily, or at least it's a community where you have to live together. It's a gated community. So I'm assuming people know each other. I mean, probably know each
oh
other
yeah.
rather well.
In most cases, yes. Some of the more recent residents, there tends to be a bit of a separation culturally between the Argentine owners and the expat owners.
Okay.
Partly that's language, and partly it's cultural, and but but most of the people who come here are they're responsible people, and they are generally not super liberal, which is the part of what I like about it.
Okay.
People are pretty conservative minded here, and I like that.
Okay. But what
So
about friendships? Like, you said it was you the guy who wrote the article. Can you tell me his name again? Because I don't want to say the guy who wrote the article.
uh,
What's
okay, Doug Casey was the
Doug
guy
Casey?
that I met in the early '90s.
And you said you developed a friendship with him over
I
time.
developed a friendship with him over time, seeing him at conferences and so on. And then when I came here, I met him and got to know him much better.
Okay.
And another friend of mine who is also a writer, who was writing a lot of Casey's material, now lives here.
Okay.
Doug does not live here. He comes from time to time, but he doesn't live here.
Okay.
He has
So
other things.
no, that's okay. And he probably and if he's been all over the world, I'm sure he's got houses all over the world, and so that would make perfect sense.
Yeah.
But from him and from the community, uh, you got to make friends. And when the last time we talked, you also play golf. You may not play it well, but you play golf. And you were going to go on a on a tournament. You were part of a
Hmm.
tournament.
Yes.
So that had to be exciting because you also had the opportunity to make new friends.
That's right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we were not, some tournaments we can select our groups, and some tournaments we're just paired up however the organizers draw names.
Okay.
And that was the way with this one. And I was the only, actually, there were only two of us in the tournament who were residents here.
Oh.
Um,
Where was the
everybody
tournament
else
at exactly? Like
in
where were
our
you
golf
playing?
course, on our
Okay.
golf course, and
Okay, good.
which is just a 3 minute bike ride from my house.
Cool. And so how did you play? Did you play good? Did you play well?
I played very poorly on Friday, which was the first day of the tournament. And Saturday I played much better. And then Sunday it was a little different format, and I played pretty well then. I was on a 2-man team then, and we had I didn't win any prizes, but I made some new friends, and that's always good. And so
So friends that live in the community you live in, or friends outside of the community, or
friends outside the community and from other parts of Argentina mostly.
okay, cool. Well, I like that.
So
I like
yeah.
making friends. I think that's really important because we have to talk, we have to associate, we have to do things with somebody else, and you know, you don't want to necessarily live by, in a closet or in a cave, because that's no fun.
One of my contentions in my writing and when I was in and when I was doing some business coaching for a while before I moved here.
Right.
Uh, One of my contentions in all of that is that relationships are the most important things in our lives. They're
Absolutely.
actually what define our lives.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah.
So the relationships are hugely important to me, and I do everything I can to uh, to find new ones and to nurture the ones that are important to me that I have.
Cool. So give us some insights. So you've been living there for what, 10 years now in Argentina?
No, coming up on I moved here in '16, so coming up on 6.
Okay. And so how is your life different now than 6+ years ago when even before you moved? So talk to us about who you are as a person now. How's life different?
I think I think because of the factors that we've already talked about, I'm a much more relaxed, um uh, much more tranquil person.
Okay.
I do a lot of meditating. I wasn't doing that. I guess I was a little bit before I moved here, but not nearly as much as I do now. And um, and I was, of course, one of the things that has happened too is that with the reduction in cost of living, I'm much less anxious about my finances,
Well, good.
and
And that
that's a part of what leads to the tranquility and relaxed feeling.
I totally agree with
Um,
that.
and and while I have some very good friends that I spend a lot of time with in New Hampshire, but here, almost everywhere I go, I'm surrounded by really good friends, and that's a big difference.
Well,
So,
then let's talk about what you do. And so you mentioned you a wine taster. You like wine. What about the food?
mhm.
What about the food in the area? Um, and how does food and
the
wine bring
the
people together in Argentina?
well, the Argentines are very social, and they are very um, and they love to socialize around meals.
Yeah,
Um,
we all do.
and most of them are not big drinkers. They drink some wine, most of them, uh, but they're not. It's not a. I mean, the wine is part of the meal, but it's not. It's not a central thing for them.
Right, right.
Um, and the tastes among the Argentine people are tend toward very bland food.
Really? I
So
didn't know
it's
that.
yeah, so and I like very spicy food, so that's a little bit of but I've found some ways to uh, as a matter of fact, I recently bought I learned that we have a website here, an online market, very similar to Craigslist,
Okay.
and we can go on there and buy almost anything, and so somebody reminded me that I could buy Tabasco on the Mercado Libre. So I went and looked on the website, and sure enough, they had a whole variety of different size bottles and different flavors and stuff. And the last thing on the list was a 1.9 liter bottle
Oh
of
my.
Tabasco. So I bought it. So I have Tabasco.
Well,
I
good.
have
Good.
Tabasco to use and give away and whatever else.
That's funny. I appreciate that so much. So any final thoughts or, something that you would tell our audience to say, hey, if you were thinking of living somewhere else than the States, give Argentina or, even how do you get into the gated community that you live in? I mean, should somebody call you up or should somebody call somebody up
Yeah,
or,
we should make, if somebody wants to come visit me I mean,
or at least
obviously I'm happy to,
visit the area? Yeah.
yeah. The best thing to do is to make an appointment with me on my website. The link to my, scheduling page is in the, newsletter that you read,
Okay.
the article
I'll
that you
put all
wrote.
that in the description. Okay.
Yeah.
And
And,
so are there places to like
and
stay or like bed and breakfast or hotels? How does that work just to
yeah,
visit?
we have quite a variety of hotels. This is a very touristy area,
Okay.
and tourism is a big part of the culture here and the economy.
Okay. So they could
So
come to visit you, visit the area, play some golf, and it would all be good.
yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Well,
And the one thing that we haven't talked about very much, and if you remember, it's how I ended up my last comment in my newsletter was that if you have any
I got the
concerns.
newsletter right open. Go ahead. Tell me.
Okay. If you have any concerns about what life is going to be like when the dollar collapses or the stock market goes to pieces or whatever,
Right.
uh, one of the things that you might think about is that whatever happens in the next 10 or 15 years, I'm pretty sure is going to be a catastrophic event in the United States. And the people here are so accustomed to that. It happens every generation. They just live through it. And these economic upsets, are just another bump in the road that they're used to. And I think that speaks well for the. I mean, the economy here is in terrible shape. We have 50% inflation,
Mm.
but everybody gets along with it, and we and like I say, people are used to it. They've seen it all before, unless they're only 15 years old.
Well, John, I appreciate all that insight. And of course, I appreciate your conversation. It's been a pleasure. And I'm kind of jealous. I'm jealous of you and I'm jealous of
Well,
your
come see
friends.
me.
When I have the opportunity, and it may not be 2022, there's only a couple months left, but definitely as we move into the new year, I will definitely give you a call and say, hey.
All
But the
right.
thing is, I've never been outside the States, so it's going to be a new adventure for me, and it certainly will be.
And as it is for many people, and it wasn't totally. I mean, I had been outside the states, but I had not. I'd lived in Indonesia in a very controlled kind of thing because I was working for a company there, and we had company housing and all that sort of thing. Uh, but but this was a pretty new experience, and that's why it took me 6 years to come around to the point where I even thought about living here.
I figured that out, and that's
So
good.
yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much. And this has been the Question Guy podcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Okay, thank you, Keith. I appreciate it.